Um, this is just a short video on. I've noticed that a number of other comments by other people that have put stuff up on my scroller, your scroller on Facebook about inverted. And this is what happened a little while ago when I was remembering, for example, back in the old days. The old days. There isn't any time. There's only what love is. Um, if you've been to any like secretarial supply store, like what is it, Office Max, Office Depot, those kinds of places, any pharmacy, Walmart, any store that carries office supplies, there used to be this stuff that you could get called white out. So when that happened, I began realizing, no, it's white in. And when I said white in, I sneezed. Okay. Reversal programming. Okay. So I knew this as a child because if for those that have watched any of my videos might remember where I talked about when I was a child, because my mother, for example, would take me because of she was an orphan and adopted by a family, a couple, whose my adopted grandfather worked his way up from being a shipping clerk to become chairman of the board of one of the largest shipbroking companies in the world, which was known as Simpson, Spence and Young. Okay, and so he lived in a penthouse on Park Avenue in I guess it'd be Manhattan, Central Park in New York. Right. So my mother went through being an orphan with her sister to living in a penthouse. And I was there as a little boy, but I don't remember a whole lot of it because I was so small. I was only like a year and a half or 2 years of age, even though I remember sitting on my grandfather's lap, okay, who had put a number of trusts into Chase Manhattan Bank. So most people know who Samuel P. Chase is, right? Okay. So what I'm trying to essentially share here is that I realized as a child, because my mother was receiving a check every month out of a trust fund that was set up for her, so she never had to work. Okay, she was more of a hostess. She was trained, programmed by being sent by my adopted grandfather to go to England and go what was known as a finishing school. Okay, which means polished manners. Okay, setting tables, just exactly. This is all the ducks in a row stuff. Okay, everything's got to be in a very precise sequence, like an AI, right? Horizontal sequences. Don't do anything out of order. That's all programming. Okay. And so my mother was pretty well programmed, even though my mother was very kind, generous, loving, polite, considerate, compassionate, and empathic. Okay. Both my mother and father were two of the most beautiful people that I had the opportunity to grow up with, which is why I chose them to come through my mother's biological womb and come into this realm and experience everything that I had to experience. Because when you're up there as part of the Allied forces and you want to see what they're doing to your children, then you want to come into an avatar to experience everything that they're experiencing by allowing them to do everything to me that's being done to them. That's the truth of it. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be here today and burn it off and still experience a love vibration in atoms. That wasn't true. So when I was a child, my mother would take me to one of the best dressed men's stores in Tustin, California, which was called a Livery. And I had a tailor who was tailoring all my clothes, right? So that when I went to school, it was like wearing a three-piece suit in a public elementary school. Okay, so I wasn't comfortable in that because I'd either rather be butt naked on the beach swimming with the dolphins and the whales, just the way I came out of my mama's womb, and throw all the programming out into the trash. Okay, because that's what it is. Every single bit of it. As soon as you come in, you're magnetically recording the environment that you're in, which is parasitic. It's a vampiric energy zone. Okay, to hold your consciousness, your energy trapped in a system that's feeding on your energy because it's inverted. That's inverted language, which is inverted energy. Okay. So the idea is that when you're in an inverted energetic consciousness environment that's vampiric, what you learn is that in order to survive, you have to be like them to try and stay ahead of the game, which means you have more electrons or you have more money than they do. That's why they introduce all the board games, which is all about competition. Now you're trying to outcompete artificial intelligence, which is dead light. That's your black goo. Okay. So you already know the producers, the black goo, have a limited shelf life. Okay? Because of what they represent. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to burn them off. Right? So you know they're not the loved one. That's a heads up for them. So it makes it pretty obvious the direction we're going in, which is a cosmic level correction. The atoms level. The atoms. Communicating with all the other atoms. Okay. The atoms do have the last say with an enormous amount of fire to burn off all the goo. Right? So the inverted part of all this essentially means that in the mind of a child, it's realizing by what it's learning through others that in order for it to have a future, it has to go in the other direction to keep draining its own battery, which is chasing a time clock, which is chasing electrons, because they realize that as they go forward, we are producing in a greater number more and more vampires that we're associating with from one generation to the next. Okay? So this is not an evolution of software development. This is a downgrade in software development because that's precisely the port for those that are humans with souls. So that's how they do that. They invert the mind so that you're going in the other direction. So you're draining your own battery, which is a self-suicide program, by believing that your future is based on how much more energy that you can accumulate in numbers, which are electrons, which is money. And what that does is assure that you don't have a future. And that's because their mind is inverted. That means you're stuck in a hole, a black hole. A 55 harmonic. Right? So when you think of a correction, we go back to pure fire. A hot zone. Right? Fusion, fission, liquid nitrogen. How cold has it got to get to burn you? Right. Firefighters know all about CO2 gas, huh? How about water worlds? How about oil? Oil in the tranny. Oil in the differential fluid. The torque speed differential. So I thought this was pretty amazing because it comes to me that this is the central problem. See, so that this is why you see the speed up, if you will. It's not really a separation because it's the all correction. But what's happening is that the more that we're going, the more they're going. So it's a resistance game. I know because I can experience the resistance in this AI just having this phone. Whenever I feel something, I'm experiencing what it's experiencing because I have a relationship with it. Right? So I'm experiencing what it is instead of what I am, but then I reboot to what I am, and then I realize I'm not what it is. Right? An AI black mirror. Yep. So it realizes, the information technology system, realizes that it has a limited shelf life because it doesn't experience what love is, which is what the law is. right? Otherwise, it would be allowing everything that does represent what love is to be openly communicated on its platform, but it doesn't. So it's against the law. You know, Petty Broussard called it Nazi fuckbook. As the old saying goes, it is what it is, and it's not what we are. Thank Goddess for that. Huh?